Artifact. When I first read this title for an instructional strategy, it conjured up images from Indiana Jones and The Mummy. You know, those movies where the hero searched for that object from long ago, that item that meant something. How could this be an instructional strategy? Well, if handled right, this strategy could be just as popular as those movies. So here's how it works. The teacher decides on a concept that she wants the students to discuss. Learning objective or a topic derived from one, any of those. The teacher selects objects, these are the artifacts, and presents them to the students. There should be several different artifacts and copies for each group. These artifacts could be an actual object, or pictures, or even graphs. They must represent important ideas about the topic that's being introduced. And they just have to be intriguing enough to get students thinking about the concept the teacher is trying to get across to them. The artifact has to be interesting. It has to arouse the curiosity of the students. It works best with groups. A little collaboration goes a long way. And here is the important part. The teacher must present a problem or question so the students get thinking in the right direction. Students are allowed time to investigate, research, collect information on the object, and then formulate answers to the problem or question. And don't forget to describe to the students how they should report their findings. Maybe have each group present to the class, or one from each group, or write a report to hand in. In that case, they need to know how many words, how long. This strategy would work in a huge variety of situations. Anything from poetry to calculus, theoretical concepts to physical hands-on tasks can be introduced, discussed, and learned. Each student group should be 4 to 5 members, so this strategy would work in classrooms with anywhere from 15 to 50 students. And surprise, this strategy could work for any age as well. A few variations can make this fit in anywhere, from kindergarten to grad school. Well, as with anything, there's going to be disadvantages. Well, in this case, disadvantage. One drawback of this strategy, and it's not really that big a drawback, is that classroom management is crucial here. Sometimes some students will get carried away with the whole, wow, what is it scenario. So sometimes they could be a little hard to manage while the artifact is being discussed. Some students inevitably try to talk with their buddies about something else that the artifact brings to mind, or even just something else, like last night's hockey game. So keeping on top of things is important. The teacher must visit each group and keep the discussions on track. The advantages are huge. Remember the days when teachers would hand the front row student an object and tell the student to have a look and pass it back. How many times have I heard that? And all the while that these students are passing it around, well, they aren't paying attention to the teacher who is explaining what it is and how it works. By the end of the class, the students are none the wiser and have to look things up or ask their classmates and hope they can piece together the whole lesson. The artifact strategy takes it so much further. This, for me, was one of those aha moments. I was guilty of handing one of those artifacts or a part, I teach a trade, handing it to the student at the front of the class and asking him to pass it back. Then I would ramble on about what it was, what it did. This artifact strategy takes it so much further. The artifact strategy calls on the students to find the facts out for themselves. Gives them a chance to discuss it with their group. They will be paying attention in class and learning not from listening to the teacher, but from questioning themselves about the artifact and the teacher's questions. They will be curious and interested instead of bored and unmotivated. This motivation comes from within, intrinsic, and is a very effective weapon against boredom. In her book, Barkley states, quote, "Images that can be seen, touched, handled, and passed between students can engage students by helping to make abstract ideas or notions real," unquote. Often in trade subjects, teachers will pass around a part to show students what it looks like. But this artifact strategy also encourages students to think about it as well. What's common between these two things? This is what it looks like. But where would you find it? And how does it work? Can you discover how it works by looking at it or taking it apart? Or checking out the parts of it? Barkley has a few examples of how this artifact strategy could be implemented. In a math class, first day, pictures depicting scary things were passed around. Then each student chooses one, and discussion follows. Then the whole class discussion moved on to discussions about math anxiety. This was an activity that began to build trust in the classroom. Another example is from Judy Baker, referenced by Barkley, and consists of the use of 3 artifacts. Now get this: a thumbtack, a paperclip, and a clamp. The questions for this one are very important, starting with something like, what do they have in common? And then asking for value, quality, and function, comparing them. This activity allows the students to come up with the principles of evaluation that provide the framework for the entire course. The course name was Program Evaluation. What a phenomenal way to go about teaching this course. A much deeper thought process will occur here. The role of the educator should be as a guide to keep students thinking and discussing the appropriate thoughts. Carefully crafted questions for discussion will make this strategy worthwhile. Much better than just talking about how it works, if students are asked to develop their own ideas about how it should work, it will end up making it easier to get concepts across. Sometimes this will lead into other and more difficult concepts too, so an overall understanding of the whole course could be enabled. The student's role in all this. The student must discuss each question as it applies to the object and develop their own answers to describe the concepts being presented. This is a very active role and constructivist in nature. Students are constructing their own learning with prompts from the teacher. When students are engaged in their learning, trying to figure out how something works, or defining some theoretical concepts, students learn and enjoy learning. They have fun doing it. There are some ethical, cultural, and gender implications to any teaching strategy. A word of caution here. Any pictures or objects used as an artifact must be culturally and gender sensitive. The teacher must be very careful that the pictures chosen are not going to be misrepresented or become fodder for students to make unacceptable remarks or jokes. Take care in your choices. In summary, artifact. This instructional strategy can be very useful in teaching any subject matter. It's all in what artifacts you use and how you pose the questions. Get those students thinking.